My first incident with cars, I was 3 years old. I stood on two of them and did a swan dive onto a floor. Two of my favorite plastic cars when I was a kid. But the passion for cars, I think it keeps people to their youth. There's something about a car. Some people look at paintings and go nuts. It's a piece of art and it's beautiful. I look at an automobile that was built in the 40s or in the 50s, and that's a piece of art. Or in the 30s. They don't build cars like that. They don't build cars like that anymore. And there were a lot of skilled people that did everything by their hand. They hammered everything out. They did everything all by hand, no machines, and they manufactured, mass-produced cars like that. And they're works of art. And I like it. And I see a car that I really like that's like that, like an old Rolls or an old Delahaye. And it's, boy, what it would be like to drive something like that down the road. And it just gives you a good feeling. And with the top down, you have the open wind, and it's like a motorcycle. It's just, you're free in the air, in the breeze.
There's also usually some sort of musical genre associated with every kind of car.
Well, that's true. The older cars, the swing music. In the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s, like with Happy Days and American Graffiti. In California, Van Nuys Boulevard. And Where Were You in 62? Everybody's cruising up and down the boulevard. The kids, innocent fun, running around the streets, hopping in and out of cars, drag racing from one street light to the next. And whoever was the most popular guy had the nicest car with the nicest paint job, and the most chrome. Didn't necessarily, the expression chrome doesn't get you home. So their cars always broke down. But the hot rods, the original hot rods, they were dependable. People loved them. They were economical. I think it started dying out in the 70s and early 80s. By about 1987, 88, the hot rod and custom car industry came back with a boom, and never to go away again. There was no fences, no gates. George's son grew up in the car industry, wound up going into the music business when he got out of high school, and we just kind of switched roles. Back in the mid '70s, I had a friend of mine building a car for Barris. He'd been around. I was building his models since I was a kid, so I knew who it was. And his place was called Barris Custom City. He had a custom car shop, and it was a city, and people from all over the world came there. So I had a friend of mine in the mid-'70s building a car for him, and I went over there, and I took one of my hot rods over there, and I went over to visit. And my friend said to me, he says, Tony, you want to help me block this car? He goes, we're going to paint it for Dinah Girl and Electra Woman, for a TV show for Sid and Marty Krofft. I said, sure. I spent a week over there sanding this car, not getting paid for it, and at the end of the day, we'd wash my car and buff it out and paint it. That was in about 1976, 77. And then I've been in his shop on and off ever since. And I wound up working with him, doing all his car shows. I wound up rebuilding his cars. One of my dreams was to drive in the Batmobile or drive in the Munsters coach. Now I've taken them apart down to the frames. I've built them up. I've driven them all over town. I travel around the world with them. So I don't take it for granted. But I see a lot of people are just enamored by it, and it's just in awe. And I'm around it every day. But I do appreciate it, and George is getting up there. I appreciate every day I'm with him, even though he drives me crazy.